A very special guest today is Anita Monk, the creator of Rockdown TV and Rockdown Radio. Right, well, look, let's talk about Rockdown because this is what you're best known for.
Yeah.
It ran for, 13 seasons?
Yes.
How did that get going?
I got this idea that I would film it as the Heritage Acts. I had no idea where they were. I was in the wrong scene. I was in a cover band scene.
And why specifically Heritage Acts?
Because I was playing in cover bands and you try to be different, but the songs sort of finished around about 1982, 83, and I'd stopped listening to Top 40 radio at that stage because I didn't like anything. So I thought, well, if we interview the artists that should be playing and should be played on the radio, then we'll find out, hopefully get them working again, because we can't have an industry that's just full of covers and kids playing new music. I was going back to people like Bobby Bright, Normie Rowe, Ross Wilson, Renee Gayer, who unfortunately I never got, Ronnie Charles, Barry Smith.
They were still recording too, is that right?
Some of them were, yes. And they were still playing, or else they would have liked to be playing, but there was just no gigs around for them. And besides that, nobody would know where they were playing because there was no advertising either. Where was the gig guide gone, Jackson? They'd all gone.
Duke magazine and all those magazines, those papers, they'd been long gone by the 80s, hadn't they?
Yeah.
The early 90s.
And so what happened was Wendy, you'd like to know how I got Wendy. I was working with my friend Matthew, who's a sound engineer. And he said, well, that's a good idea. I can think of a couple of names that you might want to be the host. And I said, but I want to be the host. And he said, you can't produce it and be the host.
This is a lesson for me.
It was it was different. At that stage, it was a different thing.
Yeah.
So I said, all right. And he said, why not Wendy Stapleton? I said, oh, I'd love Wendy Stapleton. And he said, well, here's a phone number. So I rang her. It was Message Bank, and I rang her and I said, hi, Wendy, it's Anita speaking. I'm a friend of Matthew's. I'm thinking of doing a show for Channel 31. Would you be interested in hosting it? Call me back. And 10 minutes later, the phone rang and said, hi, Anita, yes, I'd love to. And I said, you don't even know what it's about, Wendy. And because Wendy is the queen of promotion. She's very good at it. So she just said yes anyway. And then when she heard what it was about, it was just right up her alley because she knows everybody. And if she didn't know anybody, she just asked them the questions.
Yeah, and it helps to be connected. It would have given some instant credibility to Rockdown.
Oh, yes, because I had none. I hadn't even seen any of these bands play because back when they were playing, Jack, I was going to discos and I had a boyfriend who played in bands that used to support them. But my mother would have been disgusted if I'd gone out and seen these bands. There were groupies, there was drugs. I wouldn't be seen in a place like that. So I never saw any of these people play. I missed out on so much. I go, staying alive, staying alive. Oh, I love disco music.
So Rockdown really started off without a plan. It was a thought, wasn't it, more than anything else? And and you acted on that. You took it to somebody and it grew into 13 seasons.
Yes, well, I took it to Channel 31 and I made up my beautiful purple and gold backdrop, and the manager of Channel 31 at that stage walked in and went, because I cut out my own, I'm very good at rubbish bin diving. And so I got all those pieces of foam and I bought a cheap foam cutter and I cut out the Australia and cut some bits out and painted on it. And a friend of mine, Matthew, did the graphics. And this guy walked in and said, I want this show, because we were just doing a pilot. I want this show. And I said, you don't even know what it is. But people just like the look of it. And they like the fact that Wendy was there and then it was off. Yeah. And the first ever show had Mike Rudd on it. So, and he was so kind to come on because who was I? And I could have just been another person who was making money out of musicians and ripping them off. Yeah,
look, there is a lot of that. But I just think that musicians can pick something that's genuine, especially that our heritage artists. They're very savvy. So who were some of the key people that you got in? I know you got Susie Pinder in there, and who were the production team?
How did that all work? Before that, it was Wendy and Matthew Mason, who's a well-known sound engineer, And then a girl called Anita Schultz came in that I'd met at a gig. I can't remember I met her. And she was an interesting person, and she said, I'll help. And she was fantastic. First Facebook person. She had a list she'd go over there, she had a list of all sorts of names and stuff, and she'd post. She was the first person to start posting old clips. And she found all these old clips, and she was really fantastic. And the biggest thing that she was the best at was the Harvey James show when Harvey James was dying, and we did a big show at the Caravan Club. She did a lot of work for that. The Harvey James concert was before he died, and Harvey just lasted the whole night. He was brilliant, Harvey. He really amazed, and people came from all over Australia to see him. And then after she'd gone, we had Susie Pinder came in.
Now, I know Susie, so
oh yeah.
How did Susie get involved? I mean, she's everywhere. She's Miss Everywhere, Susie. I know you're out there.
We were doing a Rockdown show, which you've seen at the Caravan Club, and Wendy had come along, but Wendy was having a lovely time. So I said to Susie, you want to do some interviews? Off we go. All right, there's Ian Mossy. Oh, Mossy. Sorry, Mossy. Here's your microphone. Off you go, interview him. And she just jumped right in and did it.
Fantastic.
She was fantastic. And then she said to me, I'd like to do radio. So I'd started doing radio by that stage. So I took her along to Southern FM, and I said, righto, Susie, here's how we do it. And we did it 2 weeks in a row. And the third one I said, okay, you're right, you can do it now by yourself. Goodbye.
So you're doing Rockdown TV, and you started Rockdown Radio at the same time. Because you had Mick Peeling doing Rockdown for a while.
Yes, the first Rockdown Radio I started at Inner FM in Warringal, because it was close to home. And that was great because it was 10 till 12 on a Sunday night. Awesome time. Oh, it was wonderful. And then the guy from the footy came back again, and that was his time slot, and they said 7 o'clock on Thursday morning, and I went, oh no thanks.
No.
And I thought, who can I get to do it? I don't want to lose it. And I'd heard that Mick had been doing once a month at MDR. And I rang him and I said, would you like to do Rockdown Radio? And he'd been there ever since. I had Bob Valentine did Rockdown Radio for a while at Southern FM as well. And our guy called Matt O'Brien did it as well. And Susie did it for quite a while, but Stars has taken over. She's managing Stars, or managing Mick Peeling. So now there's Greg Ratton there, and he's awesome. He's very, very good.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm just going back to the start of this chat. This was really a thought that you'd have. You I don't know, having a few drinks, and you thought about...
No drinks.
No?
No, just what can I do?
Well, you're not very rock and roll, are you?
No, I'm not. No, I just thought, what can I do? Well, it was a selfish thing for me. I wanted to play, and I couldn't. There was no work. So I thought back when bands were great, there would be 5 bands on at once. And I used to work at the Prospect Hill Hotel.
And they do 2 or 3 shows a night, some of them.
Yes. But back at the Prospect, you would have the John Farnham band on, or you'd have the Models, or you'd have the Goanna band, or whoever. And there'd be a main band, and then there'd be an upcoming band who weren't signed, or they might have just been signed, but they were just testing the waters. And then there'd be a little support band, a newly starting out one. So all the bands that weren't signed or were working their way out, you'd all stand there and you'd go, oh, gee, he's a good guitarist. Oh, gee, that was all originals. Gee, I love that lick. I wonder how he does that drum feel. Gee, now I know why our songs aren't so good. They're missing back, so you'd learn off the masters.
What a great setup that was too when you think about it. You had the major act there.
Yeah.
There was like a funneling effect.
Yes.
With a big sound system.
With lots of advertising.
Yeah.
Advertising. And I remember back then I used to go and see a couple of bands. I think there's nobody in the room. Nobody knows they're playing, much less nobody knows that they're even alive. You've got to get them out there again, get them playing, get them in front of people, get them on television, get them on the radio.
Tell me about Sharon Love, because I did a bit of background. I did my due diligence before we got together, and saw a clip of a lady that looked very familiar to you called Sharon Love interviewing Barry Smith from the town Criers. It was side-splitting. Take a look.
Hi, Barry. I'm talking to Barry here about how he got into the Twilights. You got a phone call one night.
Town Criers.
Town Criers.
We're talking about the Twilights before, folks. That's
We were.
The Twilights were my very favourite band in the 60s.
Did they come from Adelaide too?
They did.
Well, I had no idea about television. I had no idea how to work out how long it went for. I knew I had to do a half-hour show. And with Mike Rudd, I didn't know how to edit. I got somebody else to do it. I thought I've got to put something else in. And I was playing in a band with a guy called Peter Reid who was playing with the Substitutes. And
Neil Scott's band.
Yeah, that's right. And he rang me and told me that they were playing at the Bentley Club. And he said, you should come down there. There's quite a few people. You'll be surprised. And I thought, yes, I will be surprised because I've got no idea who these people are. But I'll go down there anyway because I had no idea because I'd never been out and seen these bands. So I thought, I don't want to interview people like as Anita. So I know what I'll do. I'll go to the op shop. So I bought a caftan and then I put some old padding that I had out of speaker boxes all around. I had an old wig. I had my glasses and I grabbed some recording gear and went down to the Bentley Club and put on this shocking... and I thought, just on the way there, I thought, who will I call myself? Sharon Love. It just popped in. Sharon Love. How cool.
It's almost something out of a 90s porn movie.
No, it was supposed to be 60s, but anyway. And he said, well, that guy over there, he's Ronnie Charles. And I'd go, okay, that name rings a bell. He was in the group. Okay, what song did the group have? Woman, You're Breaking Me. And I'm a covers person. I know songs. I may not know who was in the band. So I said, okay, come upstairs. And I had no lights and I just had a camera. And so I interviewed them because I needed content. And I didn't know how to construct a television show. So I just had to have extra stuff. And so I had him, and then I also interviewed Neil Johns, who I didn't know who was until he got up and sang Seasons Have Changed, and I nearly burst into tears. And then it wasn't until afterwards I found out that Brendan Mason from Madeleine, who I had seen when I was about 16, was the guitarist. I thought, oh, my God, Anita, you've been so blinded by covers all your life. And so I didn't put Neil on. I said, and Peter Robinson, oh, well, I mean, I had no idea who Peter Robinson was either, and he was very nice to me.
Bass play with the Strangers.
Oh, yes, absolutely. What a guy. And we've stayed friends ever since then because that first show had 86,000 people watching, and I got the stats. And that's just Melbourne. That's
not on Channel 31.
That's just Channel 31.
Wow.
Because I got the papers to come along, do an interview with Mike Rudd. I wish I'd still had it. And so that's just Melbourne. That's not Melbourne and Geelong. That was before digital, so it was just Melbourne.
Yeah.
And that's very, very, very good stats. So you were going to ask me what I do when I'm driving along in the car. I think of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Little angles. What angle? That's a good angle. Oh, and Ali, I can't forget Ali. Ali does the gig guide. She does such a great job because she's on her own Facebook site with her friends. So they collect all these gigs and decide where they're going to go. So she said, I've got all the gigs. I can just make up nobody else does a gig guide. I'm not taking any credit for that gig guide. And Greg does the artwork. He's a graphic artist. So, you don't need a lot of people to make something look really professional. It's called Smoke and Mirrors.
That's it. So to what extent did the show progress throughout the season? So you would have started off, I imagine, on a shoestring. You sold a house to fund Rockdown.
I had a house up in an old church hall up in central Victoria, and when I sold it, there wasn't enough money to buy a house in Melbourne, so I continued renting. I bought a PA for my band, I bought a car, and I just had this money sitting there. So I spent 2 years going through that money and realised after that, doing all Rockdown stuff, because at that stage I had to pay airtime. So I had to pay $4,500 to Channel 31 every time they played 13 episodes.
Yeah. Were you able to get any funding for Rockdown?
Oh, I did, and I had one sponsor during that time was Yogi, which was a shoe place in Paran that sold Doc Martens shoes. So he paid for one series. Somebody else put me on to a sound company, and they did one season as well. So, but they just paid for the airtime basically, and it wasn't up until about the 110th episode that the Bendigo Bank came on, and they paid for a couple of seasons.
Wow, that's great.
Really, and at that stage the seasons were only 6 episodes at a time, because they were at Musicland, so it was a lot bigger stage, and we had an audience, and so they were very good. And Musicland was fantastic. You've got a son. Does he listen to new music or old music?
He's not interested in covers. Everything, he just writes his own music. He loves The Master's Apprentices. I put him onto The Master's Apprentices, and he heard Future of Our Nation. And he came over one night, and Jules said, "Dad, this is a great song." He was going on and on about the Masters like they were a new band. I said, "Jules, they were around in the 1960s. Who are some of the artists you work with at Rockdown that really stood out?"
There's 2 that I mention that I loved because they were so interesting, and they talked so much about their history, and all of it was important, was Ross Wilson and Normie Rowe. And both of them I made 2 episodes out of because I couldn't cut out anything. Now, I knew that Normie talked a lot, so that was fine, but he had very, very interesting things to say. One of the most important was, and I put a clip on Facebook, on YouTube, Normie said, "You get up every morning and you do something." He said, "I would get up every morning, I would learn a song, I'd go out and have a suit fitted, I'd talk to the musicians, every day." In other words, you don't sit down going, "Something happened to me now," you make it happen. And the other one was Ross Wilson. I'd never seen many interviews with Ross Wilson, and Ross Wilson was always my favourite lead singer. His focus on singing to people. I'm singing you this bit, then that, and I thought, oh, that's what I want to be, my favourite. Do you think I could get him on the show? Couldn't get him on the show for years. And finally, I got him on the show when it was in my garage. When I was finally filming in the garage, Ross Wilson came along and he talked, and he was so interesting, and I'd never heard him talk before. But Wendy was very good. Wendy would sit there. She's a very good interviewer, and she's so interested. And people always say, it's like I'm talking to somebody in my lounge room.
Great.
And so they open up, and I loved Ross Wilson's because he was my favourite.
Now tell us about the Rockdown Headliners concert, because that was an array of stars.
Well, the first one was the main acts were Bobby Bright, Ronnie Charles and Barry Smith, because I hadn't seen them around, and I thought that it would be a really good thing to get them back out the front on television singing.
Did you organise these shows on your own?
Yes, I organised these shows.
Wow.
A guy that I played in a band with, Gavin Carroll's bass player, he organised the band. And I had Mick Peeling singing. So Mick was an incidental singer. So I sang a few songs. I sang Max Merritt songs. Mick Peeling is such a good singer.
I think he did Sky High as well.
I thought I'd never ever do that song. He's got such an amazing vocal range, and always Ken Murdoch as the MC who can also sing, and he's very, very good. Yeah,
he's doing some shows with my friend Marty Rose.
Yes. Oh, dual pianist.
Dual pianist, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so we got those together, and the first one sold, and it was at the Caravan Club. Well, the Caravan Club is such a fantastic venue. So we did 2 shows there and made enough money to pay, because I had to pay a lot of people out of that.
So this all came about through Rockdown?
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
I like to think that happened, but anyway.
Fantastic.
Because I don't think you'd seen these artists on a big stage with a big band for years. Yeah. So, I like to think that I started it, because I wouldn't have done it if somebody... I don't do what other people do. People would say to me, "Oh, what's this show like?" And I'd say, well, it's my own show. I don't care what it's not like or like. I'm just doing it because nobody else is doing it.
So what's your take on the current music scene in Australia?
Interestingly, a lot of it has got to do with radio airplay. If you don't get radio airplay, if you don't get commercial airplay, you're nowhere. And we're not getting any of that. The record companies choose who gets played on the radio, and they don't play any of our artists. We don't get to hear the songs on the radio from the artists that we love.
Of course, we do have like classic rock radio. Like younger generations don't listen to those stations.
No.
So they're not going to get that education in where their current music comes from.
Yeah. They're all still writing great songs, but you're never going to hear them on commercial radio. And funnily enough, though, the other day Ali said to me, I heard Toto's new song, which I've forgotten, something C, on Triple J the other day. Now, this new song by Toto sounds like Rosanna, but they're playing it on Triple J. She said, I only heard it once, but boy, that's a big step.
Yeah. It wasn't on Triple J Unearthed. They probably think it's a new band. So what are you doing these days?
Well, I'm doing Rockdown Radio, and I think that's very important. So I'll do anything now. For example, I'll play anything from Marcy Jones, who's just put out a new song last year, and Marcy Jones is one of our heritage acts, and down to a band that was our number one band for last year called The Million from Queensland, and they're all 20.
Wow.
Great song. And I've also got my own duo that I'm starting to play very soon, doing original music.
That's pretty brave.
Well, I did it 20 years ago, which is one of the reasons also I started Rockdown. I did an original CD, and I went to play it at a radio station. It was one of those ones on St Kilda Road. I can't remember what it was. And I sent it in, and he said, yes, I love that song. Come in, we'll do an interview. And when I rocked up there, and I was 40, and he opened the door and went, I thought, why did he just roll his eyes?
You felt the weight shifting.
Yes, you're old, you old woman. And he did an interview and he never played the song.
Wow.
It was a taped interview. And I thought, well, if I can't get my songs played on radio, how would Bobby Bright do if he put out a CD? How would Ronnie Charles? Where are all these people? I was so embarrassed. I said, I'm never doing this again. And now I'm 20 years older. I thought, I'm going to do it again.
Yeah. Some people may say that a person who sells a property to fund a music career in a TV show might be half crazy, but I think you're an exceptional woman. That was a very brave move you did, and I think really Australian music is the better for it.
It was for selfish reasons, as I keep telling you. I want to play, and more people are playing, and Melbourne is better for it. And when you see the amount of gigs around the people playing, it's a lot better. Sydney looks at it and goes, can we have what you've got in Melbourne? It's proof, Jackson. Melbourne has always been, and Molly said on one of the Rockdown shows, Melbourne is the centre for music in Australia.
It is the rock capital of Australia. Always was.
We have to keep it that way. And it was my job to try and do my bit.
Well, let's wrap it up, Anita. I've really enjoyed this. I'm going to ask you some little questions before we go out. Where do you spend all your money?
On Rockdown and on my teeth.
And what do you want to be when you grow up?
I haven't grown up yet.
Good.
Yeah.
I like to hear that. Anita Monk, you're an exceptional woman. Thanks
Thank you
for coming to Jack's Place.
Thank you, Jack.
All right.